What is up, guys? It is another episode of the Cogcast Podcast, and I hope you are having a wonderful, wonderful day. And this will be actually the first one that is going to be on the new YouTube channel. So if you're watching this on YouTube, just be prepared. It is no edits, no cuts. I mean, it's just going to be raw. If you don't know what a podcast is like radio as YouTube is like TV. So this is kind of a radio thing, but I had a lot of people that wanted it on YouTube. So I started this new channel. And so now you can actually watch me do the podcast on YouTube. But this is just me talking into a mic. So just be prepared for that. But I did have a lot of people that wanted me to go back. I had put several episodes when I first started the podcast earlier in the year. I have put several episodes on there, and I got mixed feedback on it. I had some people that absolutely hated me putting it on there. I had people that loved it. So I said, I'll just make another channel. That way it doesn't interfere with the vlogging channel, because this really is not a vlog. And I'll just start a Cog Hill podcast channel. So that's what I did. So let's get that out of the way. So let's get started on the Cogcast podcast. And one thing that I love about the podcast is I can get deep into something more in depth. When I'm making the videos, I really would like to make a 10 to 15 minute video, even though I never get past 10 minutes anymore, hardly. But, it's creative. I try to make it entertaining. I try to teach. I try to make people smile. There's so much involved in a video that a lot of stuff gets left out or misinterpreted and that kind of thing. So that's why I love the podcast, because if I want to ramble on for 30 minutes and y'all want to listen to it, you can just listen to it. And I can get more in depth than I can on, say, my YouTube video or one of my vlogs. So that's why I really, really like the podcast, because we can go deep and do a dive into something that's happening here on the farm, or clarify something I may have said in a video or something that came up in a video. And that's what I would like to do today. My last video I did about me showing y'all, how it's like when it's rainy and nasty outside here on the farm, and that, you still got to do your regular farm chores, even though it's a pain in the butt, okay? And I made a mention about the Cornish feed. When I'm feeding the Cornishes, that they won't eat the powder that's left over. Typically, you'll generally feed your Cornishes a crumble and not a pellet, because they never get over 8 weeks old. So, and you always use a higher protein, and you always use a starter for the most part. Or at least that's what we do. We keep them on a starter because they're only 8 weeks old. So, and generally almost all your starters are going to be a crumble. And what happens is those Cornishes will eat all the crumble, but the crushed powder, that's just probably a byproduct of it being crushed from a pellet to a crumble, or being in the bag and rubbing and friction. It's going to create dust. I mean, the stuff is just, it's just going to create dust, and they will not eat that dust. Now, I got a ton of feedback, and I mean a ton of feedback about this. And of course, the majority of the people were telling me to wet it, to wet it, to wet it, to wet it. That is true. That is true. But our experience is, and you've heard me say this many times, no two farms are alike. Each farm is different, okay? But here on our farm, the Cornishes will not eat that wet feed. They won't eat it. Period. It'll just sit there. It really, 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 really will just sit there. We even used to get old produce from a dairy from a grocery store, old produce, and we would pour milk over the powder grain, and it would sit there. It would just sit there, and then of course it would start smelling. But then we tried wetting it, and same thing, and it's not that much, and especially if you dump it out every day. And I'm going to get around to what we do with it, but for us, wetting it just didn't work because I'm constantly pouring on top of it. Now, a lot of people want to know, why don't I wet my feed or ferment my feed? And I've explained this before in the past. We've done that before with our layers. We've never done it with the Cornishes, but our layers. And the whole reason is it's all about efficiency and time. That's the main reason why we don't ferment, we don't wet, and that kind of thing. I work a full-time job. I got to be at work at 7:30 in the morning. I generally get up around 5-ish. That way I can go ahead and fix coffee, and I start doing the morning feedings. Now, Mrs. Cog Hill, she gets up, takes our daughter to school. She's got a lot of things she does. She handles, comes back, and then she can catch up on some other chores as well that need to be done. Stuff that I maybe missed or couldn't get to that morning. Or like, for instance, right now it's very cold in the morning, so a lot of times the waters will be, frozen or really, really cold. So she'll come on back, and once it warms up, and it doesn't take long here. This is not Wisconsin, or, this is not Green Bay. This is Central Alabama. It may be 30 in the morning, around 5 to possibly 7:30-ish. And this is the average. There's going to be some days that is going to be cold a lot longer. But for the most part, come 9:30, it's done warmed on up, and the waters are fine, and that kind of thing. And so, generally on days that it is cold or it's nasty, she'll come back after she drops Mary Carl off at school, and she will, take care of the things that I couldn't do that day. So this all leads me up to this. We used to try to ferment our feed. We did. We used to try to grow fodder. But it all boils down to us is time. Time, and efficiency. And I know there's some people out there that are going to say, hey, look, it doesn't take that long. We got this way we do it, I can come in. I know exactly how much scoop. I got my feed barrel right there beside each livestock or each batch of something. I got a feed barrel with the rabbits. I got a feed barrel with each batch of Cornishes. I got a feed barrel now with the ducks. And I got feed barrels in there with the layers. Everything is there. I know how much, and I'm so efficient with just knocking it out, just bam, 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 bam. When it comes to wetting your feed or fermenting your feed, it just takes longer to do. We are a how do I explain this? I can't get my words right. We're a business. We're a farm for profit, not only for ourselves, but also for profit. We have a restaurant, we have a catering business that are our customers, and we're doing this for a profit, to make money here on the farm. Now, when we were a hobby farm and more of a homestead, and we were doing a lot of this for ourselves, we had more time because we had a lot less as well. But now, we went from egg layers to now egg layers and Cornishes to now having a big customer that wants, as many Cornishes that we can possibly do here on our farm. And also, they've asked for us to add rabbits. And then now they've asked, will we try ducks? So now we've gone from, egg layers to egg layers, Cornishes, ducks, rabbits. Of course, we got the goats. Now, the goats are a hobby. They are pets. And, but hopefully the milk will serve a purpose, and I've gone into that before as well. So it's a lot about efficiency and time is money for us here on the farm. So that's why we don't ferment anymore. That's why we don't raise fodder. We tried fodder with the meat chickens. They didn't care for it at all. The egg layers, on the other hand, absolutely will like the fodder, but it's not worth my time because I will never get that money back out of the time I'm spending making the fodder for the egg layers when I free range them anyways. So that's a lot of reason why we do things here like we do it. Now, getting back to what do I do with the powder that's left over? If you ever pay attention in my videos, when I'm going into the meat chickens, it doesn't matter if I'm in the brooder or if I'm out in where they've gone out and they're in the portable coop with the electric netting where they can go out and free range. Doesn't matter which area I'm at. The geese and ducks will follow me because they know I'm going to give it to them. The geese and ducks will eat it. They will absolutely eat it, and so that's what I do with it. I pour it out and let them enjoy it, and that's what I do with it. Now, so I wanted to clear that up because, like I said, I got a ton of comments and feedback about I should wet it. Now, getting back to putting milk on the feed, there may be people going, well, if they won't eat the wet feed, and you said they wouldn't eat the milk, they will eat the milk on the feed if you pour it on the feed when you pour the feed in. They will eat the milk, but by the end of the day, you'll have wet, milky powder left over. They will not eat it, and I don't know why. I don't know why the Cornishes are that picky. Now, I assume if I just left it there and I didn't fill their feeders up that day, their appetite's so big, they would eventually probably eat it. They eventually probably would, no doubt. No doubt that they probably would eventually eat it. But that's, what you're wanting to do with that meat chicken is you're wanting it to eat and not be stressed out and not be worried about, hunger, because their appetite is so big. And the less stress you have on them, of course, the better product you're going to have for your customers. So that's why we don't bother with wetting feed. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm not saying it's not, better for your animals. I'm not saying any of that at all. I'm just saying that for us, it just didn't work out for us. And now it's become, more of a time and efficiency thing for us here on the farm. But this is why I love the podcast. It really is, so I can just, go in depth and explain, more detail what we're doing here and why versus, my videos on my YouTube channel. I love doing both. So, and I'm getting positive feedback on both. So I'm assuming that y'all are enjoying, both things as well. There was another thing that came up too, and that was about the automatic watering system. And I explained in the last video that, we're using the Bell style waters, and we've used those made by Kuhl, Kuhl, and we've used those forever. I mean, we have. And we have, they have been a lifesaver for us. They really, really, really have been a lifesaver for us. No doubt, hands down, a lifesaver. And But they do have flaws. And, and I explained that the flaws are that the chickens can bump it. And if they bump it enough that they can actually, change the flow of the water coming in. And what'll happen is typically what they do is they bump it enough and the flow increases, and then it'll just drain all the water out of the bucket, and then the bottom of the coop will be soaking wet. That's one thing it'll do. Or it could do just the opposite and, decrease the flow, and it'll just barely dribble out or nothing to come out and no water. They'll get no water that way. That's one reason. And the other reason is that the parts to it. Something simple. Now, we figured out the O-rings. The O-rings are easy, but there's a spring inside of the valve that's a big spring, but it's made very, very thin, so it's not that much tension on it, but it's a certain amount of tension, and that tension is the hard, I had a lot of people say, hey, if you lose the spring, go to the hardware store and pick you up one, and we've actually done that several times. And the main reason is the tension. We've either got a spring that's too stiff, and therefore it doesn't let any water flow, or you get a spring that's not stiff enough and too much water flows. So we have messed around with it. I mean, I can get a spring in there. I'll put a new spring in it, and it'll work for a day, and then the next day it stopped. And then I'll wrestle with it and fiddle with it for 30 minutes, and then 30 minutes turns into an hour, and then it'll work, and then the next day it quits. So then you have to buy the kit, and the kit's $25 when you can buy a brand new waterer for $45. So then you're straddling the fence of, is it worth $25 for this kit, or would it be better off just going ahead and buy another waterer? And what am I going to do with all the extra parts? And so that's the reason that I'm thinking about changing up the watering system in the thing. And I'm going to give you an idea of what I'm wanting to do. The way the waterers, it's going to be similar to what a commercial broiler house would do. They're set up very similar. That's what I'm going after. They used a little nipple system, and it's got a little cup up under it, and it's got a PVC pipe running through there, and they'll have several of these. Well, they have probably 1,000, but I wouldn't have near that many. But I'll have that, and I'm thinking about hooking it up to one of my 55-gallon drums. That's a feed barrel that I'm not using, and it should be plenty of water. And then if I make it, not super gigantic big by all means, I can actually put the 55-gallon drum in the corner of the coop. And on cold winter days, we usually have a couple of heat lights going inside of the portable coop, and that way it should help prevent any of that stuff from freezing. So that would be another great thing as well. I wouldn't have to fill it up as much, because we fill up the 5-gallon buckets twice a day, and we have 2 of them. So that's 20 gallons a day. A 55-gallon drum should last us, what is that? Roughly 3 days, So again, getting back to that efficiency of saving time, making it easier for us here on the farm. And you'll be surprised, if you knock off 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 10 minutes over here. Next thing you know, you freed up an hour. And you if you have a farm and you're a big farm or small farm, it doesn't matter. An hour is a lot of time. And you always go back to when we're processing our chickens. If you're doing 75, let's just say 50 chickens, and you can shave off a minute per chicken, that's an hour. If you could shave off 2 minutes, you think 2 minutes of chickens, that's nothing. Well, you can shave off 2 minutes per chicken, that's 2 hours that you're going to save in the long run. So, that's a lot about, and I really, really learned a lot about being more efficient in time management. Listening to and reading Joel Salatin's book, especially the the poultry pasture poultry for profits. If you haven't gotten that book, you should seriously check it out if you're interested in doing meat chickens. We did them for a year, if not longer, before I bought that book, because I thought I didn't need it. I thought there was plenty of YouTube videos and, blah, blah, blah. Best $20, whatever how much it was I've ever spent. I learned a lot in that book. Now, we don't go strictly word for word of what Joel says, because, again, I always say each farm's different. You have to figure out what works best for you and adapt. But there's so much information in there that you can learn from and figure things out and make it work for you and your farm or your homestead or your backyard poultry setup or whatever it is that you're doing. It is very, very helpful. And he stresses a lot about time management. I've even heard him speak one time talking about how, places like, he even goes in depth, like places like McDonald's, how everything's set up, to save as much time as possible when those orders come in and that kind of thing. And in how he uses stuff like that on his farm. So that's why I stress a lot about time, because time is money. You can't buy more time. You can't create more time. So if you can save it and be more efficient with you, it's so much better for you, your farm, your family. So that's why, that's why we do a lot of things that we do here on the farm. But guys, I hope you enjoyed this week's Cogcast podcast. I'm sorry I'm a week late. As you know, if you keep up with us on all our other places, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the whole family got the flu. And we've been 3 weeks out. Basically 3 darn weeks. And so, but I'm back. Everybody's healthy. I like to thank everybody for all your prayers and your thoughts and your messages and your comments, and just, man, we really, really do appreciate it, guys. But we'll catch y'all on the next one. When, get back to the weekly Cogcast podcast. Hopefully I can free up some time and do more. And if you are interested in watching this on the YouTube, just look for the I'll put a link down below if you can see it down there. If not, just go to YouTube and search Cog Hill Farm Cogcast Podcast. It should come up. But guys, we love y'all. Y'all have a wonderful day. We'll catch y'all on the next one, guys. Y'all be good.